All right. Good morning, everyone. I am Jennifer Slattery with the League of Cities and Towns, and we are excited today to have our colleagues from Green Pages here to talk with us a bit about cybersecurity and how to combat cyber threats. I am going to toss it over to Ron Renaud now, who is one of our main contacts. And Ron, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself a little bit and a little bit about Green Pages, and then we could move on from there. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us. It's our pleasure. As Jennifer said, my name is Ron Renaud. I'm an account executive at Green Pages. Recently joined Green Pages a couple of months ago and spent a lot of time in state government, most recently for Governor Baker's administration in Massachusetts as the Assistant Secretary for what we call A&F, Administration and Finance. And in Administration and Finance, we have everything from Department of Revenue, Department of Capital Asset Management and Maintenance, and IT, and some other things which I oversaw. I also have municipal experience, finance and technology, but was really drawn to Green Pages because of their movement in the industry, their breadth of knowledge, their client base, and their expansion really into all of New England. I'm going to let Dave and Jay give you a little bit more about that, and I'll just turn it over to Dave at this point, and he can talk about himself and Green Pages.
Thanks, Ron. Good morning, everyone. My name is David Knox. I'm the Director of Public Sector Markets here at Green Pages, and I'll be brief. I know that we're here to talk about cybersecurity, but my role here at Green Pages is anything related to procurement, contract management, partner relationships, and key clients at the state and local level, both in the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, and Southeast. And I'd be happy to answer any questions in those areas if anyone has any. But for now, I'd hand it off to Jay and let him get to the meat of the discussion.
Well, thanks, Dave. Good morning, everybody. Jay Martin here. I'm the Cybersecurity and Risk Advisory Practice Director. That's a mouthful. I get it. Just call me Jay. We're going to talk a little bit about, some cybersecurity trends. Some of this might be disturbing to the folks on the call, but I promise you, hang in there. We'll discuss countermeasures that you and your organization can use to make sure you're protected, and also your families, right? A lot of times we forget we want to bring this home to our children. I know I trained my mom really well when she had the ability to use a computer and surf the web. She'd call me and say, Jay, I got this call from someone who claimed to be from Comcast, and they want to install something on my laptop. And I told them, no, call my son. So I love that. That was just great, right? So you want to be able to, have a basic understanding of what's going on here and what we're up against, but also, know how to counter it, right? So if you're ready, let's go, right? Let's do it. So we cannot learn, about the future unless we revisit the past a little bit, right? So I'll take you through, the first virus that I encountered. Now, this certainly is not the first virus, right? There was many before this, but does anyone remember the I love you virus? I know Dave was around back then. Yeah, Jennifer's shaking her head, right? In my email, I got an email that said from my CEO, I love you. And I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't really. So I didn't fall for it, but, shortly after I saw that, Elizabeth, our database administrator, came running down the hall, Jay. So I knew something was up. And that's the first time, we got hit with some sort of, malware, right? And if some of you don't remember, it was pretty, innocuous. It was like Script Kiddie who figured out, and Script Kiddie basically is someone who builds a program and figures out how to send it to the masses, and then, just causes a good yuck, right? No real harm done, but it did take this email and send it to all of your contacts. And then when those contacts got it, it sent it to their contacts. So it was just a repeated, kind of a repeated, malware, a little hoax, right? No big deal, no harm, no foul, until we got to, the bigger ones like WannaCry, right? WannaCry infected about 230,000 computers across 150 countries within hours. And this was scary. This was the wake-up call for everybody, because it really showed, and there was a patch for this, right? There was a patch that people could have applied to preempt this, virus. Now, this was actually something called ransomware, right? And we'll get into what ransomware is in a bit. But this encrypted data on people's laptops and on servers and stopped businesses from running. Okay. But, just what I said, there was a patch for this that Microsoft released weeks before. So this showed how important it is for your IT people and you at home to keep up with patches, right? To keep up with these new releases that Microsoft, if you have Apple devices, your iOS devices, even this thing right here, your iPhone, keeping up with those patches, right? And making sure you're installing those, okay? So that's critical there. I think the last one I want to talk about here is the Colonial Pipeline shutdown that happened. This was, more aimed at, hitting our critical infrastructure, right? A lot of you, probably have electrical grids that you're supporting, right? Water treatment, right? These are the things we need to start protecting now. And it's the same thing, right? It's the same basic security hygiene that we're going to talk about later, that you want to make sure, you're promoting in your organization, because it takes all of us. It's not just an IT thing, right? This is a business issue. This is a C-level issue. This is a board of directors issue, right? All the way up to the top. We all need to be conscious of what's going on here, right? So everybody remembers the Colonial Pipeline. I won't get into it, but it did shut down a pipeline, had big effects on, shutting down some airlines, delaying flights, and, temporarily raising cost of oil and gas. All right, so let's talk a little bit about, I'm going to stop there and just see if there's any questions, any thoughts, comments. All right, let's keep going. So those are the past threats. Let's take a look at, where the new threats are going, right? And why these cyber criminals are doing what they're doing, right? Number one, they're trying to monetize what they're doing. Oh, sorry, we're back to that one. Bear with me for a second. They're trying to monetize, ransomware, right? Trying to monetize what they've developed here. And what we see here is 71% of organizations have suffered $5 million in financial losses from cyber incidents in the last 18 months. And I also know that this particular study showed that 71% out of 71% of these organizations, almost all of them experienced multiple cyber incidents within that 18-month period, right? Which contributed to this the $5 million loss. Not only do companies have to make a decision about paying a ransomware fee to the ransomware attackers, but they're also down, right? They cannot run their business. So right now I'm working on an emergency incident with a company in Florida. They get hit right before Thanksgiving. We work through the whole weekend trying to get them back up and running. And they're losing about $1 million every 2 days, right? So that's where this comes in, right? And they're still down, right? We're still trying to recover them, and we'll have them back online within the next couple of days. But it is an impact on the business. So monetization, right? And I'll talk about that in the next slide. Supply chain. So managing ransomware risk in your supply chain. So you rely on vendors, third parties. Some are more strategic than others, right? Some have maybe access to your systems, to your financials, to other things in your organization, right? And that's another vector for the bad guys to use, right? So that supply chain. We saw it, the last couple of years, first off with the SolarWinds attack, then there was a small Okta attack, Kaseya got hit. So we see these over and over again. Third, hacktivism, right? So people targeting, the KillNet group is more recent, right? And we're seeing, hacktivism popping up all over the place around the Ukraine invasion, and other things, right? So hacktivism is a big reality now. And then last but not least, another new reality is the C-level, unlike ever before, and the board of directors are being held accountable for cyber attacks. All right. If the government's not fooling around anymore, right? They're going after owners. It's now mandatory for public companies to have somebody on the board of directors that is experienced in cybersecurity. So, the tone is shifting, and, owners in C-level suite are now being held accountable, fined, and replaced. All right. So what is some of the, we looked at the past, we're seeing where things, are. Now let's kind of look at the near future here, and what are some of the threats you might be running into. Number one, does anybody know what this is? It's a skimmer, right? That's installed at a gas station. And this is a really slick trick that these bad guys have been doing forever. I mean, look at how blended this looks, right? It doesn't even look like it's something you notice if you pulled up to get gas, right? You stick your credit card in and you pull it out. But what's happening in the background, and these are cheap devices to make. They run on no power. When you stick your credit card in, your little chip, that chip actually gives it enough power to capture the information on your credit card. And then these guys, after, they're watching the place for, a few hours, they come, they take that thing off, they have your credit information, and away we go, right? And so that's the new reality, even, going up to an ATM, right? You have to always be on your guard. And then, in the future, we have these two beauties. Does anyone know who these two guys are? Dave, Ron, extra points for you if you know who these two beauties are. Yeah. Well, they both are active participants in the World Economic Forum, right? Davos. Think Davos. The guy on the right is Klaus Schwab. He's the president, where all the elites go every year, right? And his henchman on the left, Yuval Harari, they claim that they could hack humans now, right? And they're talking about transhumanism, and this isn't conspiracy theory. You can look up their videos on YouTube. You can go to the World Economic Forum website. It's creepy stuff. But guys like, Dave and I and Ron, we're going to have jobs for the rest of our lives if, this stuff starts coming down the pike, right? So, cybersecurity is a good place to be. But we want to be on the preventative side of these things, right, guys? We don't want to be, responding to emergencies. It's not fun. I got to be honest with you. Tempers flare up. And customers want to get back online and get their business up and running again. I'd rather be on the proactive side of things. So let's keep going here. So what is ransomware? It's a type of software that bad actors use to prevent you from doing business, right? Stopping your business in some way, shape, or form, and then demanding a payout in return. And so how do they make money off of this ransomware? Number one, double extortion. What does that mean? Double extortion is, I'm a bad actor. I deploy a payload in your environment, either through phishing, sending somebody an email and, they think it's from somebody they know and they click on it, right? That launches the attack. The attacker then understands they're in somebody's computer. They could download now all kinds of software, move laterally into your computer network and get the keys to the kingdom, which is that administrative password, right? And then they launch their attack, their ransomware attack. And so what they do is they encrypt files. That's number one. So you cannot decrypt them unless you have a really good immutable backup somewhere else in the cloud that was untouched by this, and that's hard to determine. So there's, there's a trick to this stuff. And number two is they siphon your data, right? I had one municipality about a year and a half ago that got attacked. We had to deal with the ransomware because they didn't have good backups. And we were dealing with the ransomware. They were asking for something like $5 million. And we started negotiations with them, and we told them we don't have the money. We're a kind of mid-sized town here, city. And they came back to us and knew the financials for the whole city. They knew exactly what was in cash. They knew all the payment, all of the, the staff, the police, fire department, mayor, what everyone got paid, right? I mean, they had all that information. So the double extortion part is they want money to decrypt your files, and they want money so that they will not expose that data to the rest of the world, right? So, that's what double extortion is. Selling your data on the dark web. So the other thing is, they turn around and they take that information and forget about, ransoming you. They'll turn around and just sell that information. And if they get the right information from the right vertical, like a financial firm, they get a username and password to a C-level executive in a financial firm, that thing can go for like $15,000 easy on the dark web, right? So they're monetizing it through the dark web. Last, ransomware as a service. So this is a huge business, right? These are people who develop malware and ransomware payloads so that other companies can buy them, not companies, but bad actors would buy those. So these developers get money, and the bad actors now use this ransomware as a service to launch their attacks. So they make money that way. So let's take a look now at some cyber trends that's going on right now, and where we're seeing things heading in 2022 and 2023. So this creeped me out. Cyber crime has now exceeded annually cross-border trade of illegal drugs. That's crazy. 10 trillion annually in 2025. That's more than the illegal drug trade, right? That's what, 1.5, 2 years away. Never in my wildest imagination would I've ever thought this, when I first got into this business. So that's crazy. It also in 2025 will be the third, if you were to take it and apply it to GDP, it'd be the third largest GDP in the world behind US and China. Top CIO concerns for 2022. I got this right out of CIO magazine: combating cyber criminals and skill set mismatch and burnout. What we're doing is we're turning IT people into security people. They weren't meant to do that. They're keeping their day jobs while trying to be, security people. It doesn't work, guys. It's very difficult. I've seen these guys burn out and move on to greener pastures. And that's why we're getting a lot of turnover in IT and security today. And number three is, specifically for your vertical here, the public sector and school districts. This is from the Verizon data breach incident report that comes out every year. It's an amazing read. I read through it every year. I love this. It's one of the best things that I look for, and it comes out about June of every year. Motives for the bad guys, right? Number one, financial in the public sector and school districts. They're looking to make money. Number two, espionage. And number three, for a grudge, right? We've seen grudge. Dave and I have done some work recently for a large school system. And it was more of an ideology grudge thing. So we see those. We see all of it. The threat actors are mostly external, but there are some internal threat actors that, want to do damage, whether that's through, hey, ideology and a grudge, or, there's some payout for them at the end of the day too, right? And then, so how do they do it? Mostly through system intrusions due to misconfigurations, not keeping up with patches, and, like we talked about, phishing, right? People clicking on things. Make sense? All right, let's get into how state and local government compare to other verticals, right? So good news here is that ransomware paid in 2022 from state and local governments averaged about $213,000, as opposed to cross-sector here of other industries, they paid out on an average of $812,000. And this is about right on from what I've seen. Number two, average cost to remediate is a lot less in state and local government, but it is about $660,000 on top of the ransom that sometimes has to get paid out. Not always, but sometimes, right? Whereas the other cross sector is about 1.4 million, right, to remediate. So think about it. All your files are encrypted. You can't, you have to somehow get a backup and restore it. A lot of times there's technical debt. So when we come in these emergencies, we're typically rebuilding from scratch, guys, right? There's a lot of technical debt. So we modernize, we put security telemetry and monitoring that might not have been installed or were old and antiquated. And then we rebuild from scratch for our customers. So that's where the cost comes in, right? And then some good news here. Looks like state and local governments have upped their cybersecurity spend in 2022. This is from a Sophos study recently that came out, I believe, in October, compared to other industries. So I don't know. I wish I had a show of hands to see if this corroborated what you are seeing, but it looks like spending has increased on cybersecurity recently. Anybody want to chime in on that and tell me what you guys are seeing? Jennifer, do you know?
I actually do not know, but I'm not sure if anyone else would like to give us their impression.
I actually have a question.
Yeah, sure.
It's not an answer, Jay. On the state and local government to remediate that extra 660K, just to put in perspective, if they would have put the proper protocols in place up front, it would have been appreciably less for most municipalities than 660K just to remediate.
Yeah, Ron, that's a really good point because, listen, I'm not cheap when I go into an emergency situation, right? My rate is considerably higher than if you brought me in early because we're working weekends and nights and I'm getting pulled off of other engagements, right? We have to go tell other customers, hey, we'll get back to you. And it takes a special skill too, right? We bring people in who are trained in forensics, business email compromise assessments, and routing, getting out the bad guys, right? Containing, eradicating, and then restoring the environment, right? These are special skills, right? The ransomware negotiation thing is, uber expensive. I mean, to get somebody in skilled to do that, who has, cryptocurrency accounts pre-established, because that's what you need. It takes a long time to establish cryptocurrency accounts and put that type of money in that these ransomware attackers are asking for. So, we work with people who have those ready to go just in case this happens. So you're right on, Ron, right? And just to think, now you're expediting shipments of new hardware, you're setting up, something in the cloud, right? Everything is an emergency and everything is, priced differently. Good point. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd like to see a breakout between state and local governments there, because I would imagine that a majority of that money is spent at the state level. I do think that some of it's filtered down to the munis when it comes to security awareness training. A lot of that money is spent at the top, but I'd like to see a breakout, and public utilities as well. I don't know how many municipalities in Rhode Island have their own water, sewer, and power, electric, gas, and electric. But I would guess that they need more, frankly. There's probably a debt there at the local level.
Oh, we're seeing it, right, Dave? So yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough, right? All right, so let's get to what we can do now, right? Enough of the doom and gloom here. Let's get into, what we can possibly do to fend this off. One thing I'm seeing more and more of is something called zero trust, right? Zero trust is a business strategy. It is not a technical strategy. Zero trust has three main philosophies, right? And it's a journey, right? Not anyone can just, buy a product off a shelf and get zero trust, right? It takes the whole organization to be rowing in its direction, and it's made up of multiple disciplines, multiple technologies, and I'll show some of those in a minute. But number one is apply least privilege access. What we see a lot of times, and I just saw an eagle fly by, that's amazing. Apply least privileges in organizations. There's a lot of, hey, once our people are on the network and they have access to a system, we're not going to spend time, compartmentalizing that data, right? Everybody has access to, everything. Instead of saying, all right, this group only needs access to these applications and they can't go anywhere else, like microsegmentation. So we're segmenting them off. And then once they get there, they only have access to the data they need for their job. And once they move from that job, we track that and we, take away that access and give them only the access they need. This is, security hygiene. This is HR being involved. Think about it, right? This is managerial approvals for access. It takes a village kind of thing. I hate to say that, but it does. And so it's really a philosophy and a change of mindset, right? Just-in-time access with just enough access. That preempts the bad guys in so many ways, right? They can't get to that data anymore. They can't access it either. So think about that, right? Even segregating administrative roles, right? Your IT staff who have admin access, there should be some segregation of duty there as well. Number two, verify explicitly. Are you who you say you are? Do you come from a device that's sanctioned by the organization and that we've seen before? And can we continually verify for every request that you have on the network that you still are who you say you are, right? This takes a lot. It takes some technology to do this, some advanced work, but it also takes things like asset management, right? Inventory management. And that takes, a team of people to be able to do that. Your procurement team, staff who can manage the assets and then feed those into systems and identify, Dave has, a Lenovo ThinkPad, right? And we've installed antivirus on that. We're using Sophos, and it's, and he has to be on the latest patch levels in order to get access to the environment. Imagine that right there. And then you're stopping, 3/4 of your attacks, right? So, what these bad actors are doing is they're masquerading as users, and they're coming from all different, possibly through networks. Even though they're foreign, the IP addresses look like they're in the US, and they're taking over systems within the US. So it still seems like somebody's coming from the US, right? But it's not Dave's system. So, there's ways to stop that, right? Also, part of this is multi-factor authentication, right? Being able to challenge a username and password with something, that's username and password, with something you have, which might be your iPhone, right? To a program like Microsoft Authenticator, Duo, there's several of these, RSA, and so on, right? So that's verify explicitly. And third is assume breach. We need to, as organizations, assume somebody is already on our network. Somebody's in there, some bad actor. They take months sometimes to look at what's going on, where all the data is, and how best to launch their nefarious attack, right? Months. We've seen it over and over again. So we want to be able to identify anomalous behavior in the environment. Is somebody in there at 2 a.m? That shouldn't be, right? Is somebody logged in from Montana, using credentials that they shouldn't be using from Montana, when we know those credentials are, sitting pretty here in Rhode Island, right? So, it's stuff like that. This guy logged in at 9 a.m. And then at 9:30, he's in Rhode Island, he's logging in at 9:45 from California. It's not possible, right? So being able to pick those up using telemetry applications and monitoring is critical as well, right? So this is the tenet for zero trust. And this is where we're going in the future. This is where it's all heading, to fend off what we just talked about in those other, those other slides. So this is our framework. This is Green Page's Zero Trust framework. It starts with governance, risk, and compliance on the bottom, right? And that starts with your C-level executives, right? It's a top-down approach. And I wish I had these on the top, but this is really, a top-down approach, not a bottom-up. Some automation and orchestration, because you do need to move quickly if ransomware is launched, right? You can't be looking at screens and saying, oh, let me call Joe. Joe, what do you think? And let's pull in Jay and Green Pages and see what they think, right? No, then it's almost too late, right? So you need some automation. We're going to get there with zero trust, right? And this is an overtime thing, guys. You don't do this overnight. And then visibility and analytics, again, tracing people, tracing everybody's footsteps, where they're coming from, where they're going, and being able to do some machine learning and AI on top of that to prevent the bad guys from moving. And then you have things like identities, like our username and passwords, devices, our laptops, desktops, network devices, infrastructure like IoT devices, applications and workloads and data. All of these need to be taken into consideration in a zero trust framework, right? So if you want to know more, give us a call. We're doing this internally at Green Pages. I have a slide to show you our journey and where we are on that journey. So what can you do? The first thing we recommend is an assessment and roadmap. Whether you do this internally, you get CISA to come in and do it for you. The Department of Homeland Security has some free assessments. They come in and help you, or you get someone like Green Pages to come in and help you. You want to start with some level of assessment and roadmap. What's your lowest, that game of Red Rover? Does everyone remember that when you were kids, right? When you were the guy or the gal running across to break through the line over there, who would you pick? The smallest kid, right? You try to go through, that's Joe, he's 2 years younger than me. I'm going to try to break through that. That's what these bad guys do, right? They're going to try the lowest point. So building a priority list and saying, these are our top attack vectors is something you got to do, right? You might innately know it in your head, and maybe you've been pontificating it to your executive teams. I got to tell you guys, I remember saying over and over again when I was a CISO, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this, right? But then you get a consultant in to tell you, or you get like, Department of Homeland Security to tell you. And then it's like, oh, we need to do this, right? The executives all of a sudden wake up and they're saying the same thing you do. It's human nature, right? Number 2 is multi-factor authentication everywhere. We already talked about this. Not just for your administrators, not just for remote users, everybody, right? Everybody, because they're going to find that weakest link. And where's the edge anymore anyway, right? Is inside the network, a green zone now? No, it's not. If you're sitting in an office behind a firewall, it doesn't protect you. And we have a lot of people who are still remote. So where is that edge of your network anymore? It's in the cloud. It's all over the place. Security awareness training. We talked about that a little bit before the call, right? And phishing exercises, right? I highly recommend, something like a KnowBe4. There's a bunch of them out there, but, really automate this. Make sure your organizations quarterly are doing training. It goes a long way, right? And maybe take a little test along the way to ensure that they're actually taking it. Put it in their performance reviews, right? If they don't take it, they don't get, their raise, right? I mean, we got to start hitting people where it hurts, or we're going to start hurting, right? And then we talked a little bit about immutable backups off-site. That is a mandatory thing that, cyber insurance companies are looking for now. All of these are really. Security monitoring, next generation, malware protection and antivirus, right? We've come a long way, baby. We're talking about, managed detection and response, in XDR, which is, Uber detection and response, right? And then somehow managed. What happens when you get that alert? What do you do? Incident response plans, right? Disaster recovery plans if the worst case happens, right? It's not enough to just see an alert coming from your security monitoring tools. What's next? What are you going to do about it, right? And then last but not least, understand who your vendors are, understand the risk they impose on your environment, and understand how they are protected, right? That's mandatory going into the new age, going into 2023. And then, zero trust, we talked about that. Start your journey, right? I know most of you probably can't even think about that. A lot of customers come back to me and say, Jay, you talk about zero trust. We're at like 90 plus trust, right? But, you need to start thinking about it and start planning for it. All right, let's get into Green Page's journey. I not only speak at these events, help customers recover from ransomware, and help out Ron and Dave where I can, but I'm also helping build our zero trust journey internally here because we're a managed service provider. We feel like we need to be held at a higher level. So on the foundational level, we talked about, GRC, visibility and analytics, and automation and orchestration, right? We've gone through and updated all of our security policies, right? We've had third parties come in and assess us, and we have our SOC 2 attestation. So we do that quarterly, right? SOC 2 auditing quarterly. We're also going for our CMMC certification, which is based on NIST 800-171, which is one of the de facto standards here in the US for security good practices, and has a bunch of controls in there, right? So we're going for our CMMC certification. We'll have that in 2023. For governance, risk, and compliance, we manage all of our policies, all of our open risks, business and IT risks, all within a risk register from a company called KnowBe4. They have a great program there. We onboard all of our vendors and we assess their risks through a system called Panarrays. We have a process built, a policy, a paper policy, and we have a system to do that. And we have accountable people who are on the hook to continually verify that our vendors aren't at risk. We have a business impact analysis program where we go and we find our most important business processes and how those business processes are automated. So what applications automate those? And we do due diligence to determine what's our tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 applications in case we get hit. So number one, if we get hit by ransomware, these 7 applications are our priority and they all need to be up within 4 hours. How do we do that? We do that through a DR program, right? A disaster recovery, formal disaster recovery program, and a formal business continuity program. So we're well on our way around that. Visibility and analytics, we use something called Orca because we're in Azure right now. We have some AWS instances as well. We use Arctic Wolf for our on-prem and cloud visibility and analytics. And we also scan using Nessus every quarter for vulnerabilities in our network. And we have a strong patch management program. And then for automation and orchestration, we use ServiceNow on the back end. And just quickly here, because I know we only have a couple of minutes left, for identity, we are rolling out, we have AD, Azure AD, and we're using Duo as MFA, but we're also, if you look at that bottom, SSE is something called Secure Service Edge. It's part of our zero trust. All of these are part of our zero trust journey, but this is one of the piece d'existence, the key, which is called Zscaler, right? Zscaler is a tool that we're using for all our clients, and we're rolling this out slowly. All our clients will be going through the Zscaler proxy to do all those things that I talked to you about in the previous slide. Least privilege, right? Verify explicitly, and interrogation, assume breach kind of stuff, right? So that's a key component. We have Sophos again. Looking at our devices, we have Arctic Wolf agents also installed on each device, servers and endpoints. And like I said before, we're doing extensive patch management through Manage Engine and Microsoft Intune for our mobile devices, right? So this is our journey. I'd like to hear from all of you eventually on your journey and, where you're going. Right. I'm getting to the end of the slides here. Our approach is to assess, modernize, and manage. When we come in and we even for ourselves, assess where we are, build a roadmap, build a budget around that, having a multi-year plan. Then we want to come in and help organizations modernize, whether that's process, people, organization skills, technology, all the things you see in the middle layer, right? That's what we are working to assess and modernize. And then finally, we're a big managed services company. We do a lot of SOC as a service, which is security operations as a service. We do day-to-day administration and management of applications, server infrastructure, cloud, network devices, the whole gambit. And we also have something called Help Hub, which helps support your help desk initiatives, right? And last but not least, this is all about us. Green Pages, some stuff that Ron and Dave talked about at the beginning. We really focus on cloud, digital, and security. And we're right at the time, I think, Jennifer, correct? Not bad.
Very nicely timed, guys. No, that's great. And I think we can use the remainder of our time for questions, or if anyone would like to kind of talk a little bit about where you think your community stands, and what your biggest either fears or circumstances that you're in that you'd like to see mitigated.
Hi, this is Dave DeShano. I'm with the town of Smithfield. I'm in IT. I wanted to circle back. I know we discussed, segmenting specific permissions and access to things. And something, that I experienced here, I just came into Smithfield almost a year ago now. And one of the things that I experienced here, and I've seen it in other environments, is, segmenting the duties of servers themselves. I've seen, where you got one server that's acting as a domain controller and an application server and a file server. And, if that one server gets hit, you're kind of out of luck there. So, I just wanted to bring that up in case, others weren't aware of that. But yeah, I think this was a great presentation. You guys touched a lot of great topics and very knowledgeable on it.
Well, thanks, Dave. Great point too, right? The multi-use, again, we've gone through a period of like, hey, tight budgets. We have to make do with the systems that we have, and I think that stemmed from that. But you're right, it is certainly a huge attack vector for the bad actors, right? And if they hit that one system, you're pretty much 100% down, right? Nobody can authenticate. Nobody can access applications, and you're doomed. So that ability to virtualize that and really, segment that, micro segment that, at a firewall or beyond, it makes a lot of sense. And should be something, you consider first and foremost, right? Besides multi-factor authentication and that security awareness. Really good point. Anyone else, anything keeping you guys up at night around security, or everybody's like, nah, we got it covered?
Hey, Dave, I think you may want to jump in at this point.
Okay. Yeah, folks, just so you know, I'm a former CIO in state and local government, and there's a number of other folks in Green Pages management that come from this space as well. I've got a lot of experience. We know, well, we have a pretty good feel for the different roles, finance, tax collectors, clerks, public safety officials, emergency management. You know, we know the gamut, and you know, we know the applications that you folks use too. So sometimes it helps. It's a, you know, public sector and particularly the state and local government space is a breed apart, right? It's not like the commercial space at all. And folks have different concerns. Every office, as you walk through a town or city hall, they've got a completely different set of priorities. So, you know, we have some folks that have a good, keen understanding of that. And as Jay does, he's certainly done a lot in this space. So if there's anything we can do to allay any fears, you know, we understand the risks. We'd be happy to talk to you separately, either at the, you know, for the town managers or mayors or the IT folks that serve under them, or any of those other department heads. We'd be happy to speak to you and, you know, kick a few ideas around. Just reach out to Ron or myself or Jay, and we'll be happy to connect.
Do they have our contact information, Dave?
I was just going to say, I do have a sheet that I'm going to circle back around with the folks that attended and others. Excuse me. But if you want, why don't you put emails in the chat? That might be helpful too.
Sure.
For our Green Pages folks.
You doing that, Jay?
Yep. Yours is just D.
Enox, yeah, first initial
Enox.
last.
Perfect. All right, so while that's going on, just do one last call, see if there's any other questions. And hearing none, I will thank our presenters today. This was a great amount of information, and for us non-techie types, a lot to kind of digest. But it's nice to know that we have you folks that we can turn to and ask questions of and see what's really going on in our systems. Oops, is it? I got a little note from Dave. Yes, of course. So with that in mind, I want to thank our speakers and thank you folks for attending. And I will upload this video to our YouTube channel, and we'll make it accessible to your colleagues and managers as well. So thank you, Green Pages. And I think you're going to be at our convention, so we will see you there, but hopefully we'll connect before that. So thanks so much.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thank you all.
Everybody.
Thank you all. Thanks, Jennifer. Take care.